Hello and welcome to Historified with Chestnut Square. I'm Annie.
I'm Jamie.
And we're here to talk to you today about, what are we talking about today, Jamie?
The Ferris house.
The Ferris house, which is the oldest standing house here in McKinney. It was built in 1854 by John Ferris.
That's right. So pre-Civil War, which is really important to note.
Yes, it is one of the only pre-Civil War houses that you can actually take a tour through.
So another reason to come to Chestnut Square to see a pre-Civil War home.
Yes, yeah. So, Jamie, what do we know about John Ferris?
Well, we know that he came here from Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And when he arrived, he was a single father. He was widowed. And
was he, though?
Oh, I know. Well, we can talk about that in a minute.
Oh, the tea.
But yes, I think we need to start drinking tea because I think we're always spilling tea about our families.
We are spilling tea.
But we do know that he came here with most of his children because a lot of his children were like various ages, mm-hmm. and they were full. You know, quite a few of them were full grown. And so when they hear like John Ferris had 9 children, everyone's like, what? And it's like, well, you know, and living in the house, I'm like, oh, they weren't all living here. So I think, I believe what I read was 7 came with him.
Yes.
And then one ended up going back, but then he returned because he's probably like, yeah, Tennessee is not where it's at.
No, it wasn't where it was at. You had to be in Texas.
So, so that I know.
Okay.
He was a blacksmith. Amongst other things. He
had
quite a list.
He was a Jack or a John of all trades.
That's right. John of all trades. But
yes, he was a blacksmith. He was also an accomplished woodworker. The front door on the Ferris house was hand chiseled by John Ferris. And so it's from 1854. It's amazing. It's beautiful. I love that door.
So I think the door, so here's the interesting history of the house. That door might be a little younger than the house.
Oh, okay.
Because when the house was first built, it was in a dog trot style, which was very common in the South. So for those who have been in Texas for a while, or maybe you're here from another southern part of the country, a dog trot style was like where you would have rooms on either side of a breezeway.
Oh,
right?
Yes,
so there wouldn't be a door. Or anything. It would just be a complete breezeway, and they would call it a dog trot. They called it, wasn't like a possum trot was another term
I think so.
that they would
possum
use.
Trot, yeah.
And I think there was one more term. I remember we were talking about it one time. But so when it was first built, it was in a dog trot style. And then before he passed away, and he passed away in the 1870s, he had closed up the house. Mm-hmm. And so that's when that door would have been added. So he added the front part of the breezeway, and in the back part of the breezeway, closing it up, and now it's considered an early Greek revival.
Yes. Although the door could have been on a different part.
You're right. No, 100%.
So, yeah, we'll never know. Well, we can ask James West. So, yeah, he built his house. He built a small blacksmith shop near his house. But he was also an engineer, and he made the first bridge that went over Wilson Creek. And it was like a toll bridge to get goods across the creek from elsewhere.
Yeah, because we didn't have, like, that creek just cuts through, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you've been by Wilson Creek or over by Town Lake, and you can see that it gets very wide in some areas.
Yeah.
And we all know with Texas rain how high that water can
and
go.
how quickly it can go up. Yeah.
So, and the stagecoach and farmers and salesmen couldn't cross Wilson Creek. So he, with his sons, I think 2 of his sons, designed it, and then it was built, and it was a game changer, and it was the only covered bridge, I believe, in Collin County. What a bummer it's not there anymore.
I know, progress.
So, and I know that James West, if you don't know who James West is, I do believe we've discussed him before. He's been affiliated with Chestnut Square since the beginning. I believe he knows where the original bridge sat.
Yes, he does.
And we do have a picture of the bridge that was drawn. But what a neat thing to have had, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people go up to the New England area and they want to see those covered bridges. And
Right.
we had one.
Yeah, we did.
Right.
We did. Oh.
I'm sure it just didn't survive anyway. It was made of wood, and I don't know.
It probably rotted a little bit.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I wish we had an actual picture of it, though.
That would have been really great.
Yeah.
And do we know when it was in existence from? From when until when?
I believe it's on the sign that's in the Ferris house, but I'm not sure when it officially got knocked down.
It's hard sometimes to remember all of these details because
Right.
of all of the research we're constantly doing. And I feel really bad. Like, we've been affiliated with Chestnut Square for years,
Yes.
no longer than me. And I still walk in and I'm doing a tour and I'm like, hold on, let me check that. I don't remember this basic information because I was just researching blah, 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 blah. And it's really easy. It almost seems like
Goes out
one
of your
giant
head.
family.
Yeah, yeah. And actually they were, in a way, because I know a Ferris married a Wilmoth, and then a Wilmoth married a McKinney, and I think a Ferris married a McKinney.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and so all the families kind of start intermixing together,
Yeah.
and then they go out. So it's very interesting. The Ferris family, I know that one of his sons, Jack, at one time was the oldest living McKinney resident.
That's right.
When he passed.
That's right. Was
Yeah.
there a nickname for him, like Uncle Jack? Or
Uncle Jack, yeah, Uncle Jack, or yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. And I remember seeing it in the newspapers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really neat.
Yeah.
But it just shows what a small community it was, right?
Yeah, it was a very close knit community as well, because I think that Joseph Field Delaney, the pharmacist who lived here in the Delaney house, and one of the Ferris boys had a patent together for a weather strip that goes on the bottom of the doors. Mm-hmm. I believe that I found that patent during some research.
And do we have that kind of weather strip on our doors? Because I feel like we need to find one now. I don't know if I ever came to fruition, but we need to create it.
I think it might have been on one of the doors at one time, but yeah. I don't know, not on one of our doors, but
history nerd kind of thing. I'd be
We're
like,
gonna go down rabbit holes.
Where is it?
Yes. But in the Ferris house and in the history of the Ferris house, it was actually it played a role in the Civil War, all the way down here. So what the story is, and jump in if you have something else to say. What the story was that I read was they were building the courthouse downtown, and there was a bunch of limestone down there, and the Ferris house was fairly close to the courthouse, and Quantrill and his raiders came through, and they were in a standoff with, was it Sheriff Reynolds? Sheriff Reed, and Reynolds was another man that was part of it. I think it was his brother-in-law.
There were two.
Yeah. And they were holed up in the Ferris house for some reason because it was the brother-in-law of one of the Ferris daughters.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or not the Ferris daughters, but she was married to one of the Ferris. And there were bullets flew during that time.
And they did find a bullet in
they found
the Bodark.
Bodark.
What are those called that goes under the houses?
The piers or the
the
foundation.
Thank you. I'm an implant. I had basements where I came from. So coming down here in the houses, being on the little Bodark stumps is new to me. It's a new concept. Well,
So yeah, they found when they moved the Ferris house here, they found bullet fragments in there from the Civil War.
Yeah.
So that is interesting to me.
It was a big deal. I didn't realize that they were held up in the fairs. I thought it was just in the cross fairs.
I've read different things. Again, I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure.
That's a tough thing. I mean, we've mentioned it before. It's just records back then weren't as well kept, or if they were well kept, there wasn't always somebody like going, oh, but this is the truth, or people going in and questioning. Right. So, and that's
and
why
then it was passed down through
Right.
through stories. And if you've ever played the telephone game, you know that things can get messed up between interpretations and stories. But that is what that is a story that I've heard. So if anybody has any other stories about it, please reach out to us so that we can get the record straight. What else happened in the Ferris house?
Well, I do know that a jury was, I'm not even going to try to say that word.
Sequestered?
Thank you.
I got you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm not shy to admit that pronunciations aren't always my strong point.
Okay.
But I do know it was a 12 jury.
Yes,
12
it was
jury
12 men.
Were staying at the Ferris house during a very infamous trial in McKinney of Stephen Ballou.
Yes, he was accused of killing his brother-in-law, of all people, and robbing him. And it was down here that he was accused of doing that. And they were sequestered there. And they stayed for like 3 or 4 nights or something like that.
Which is insane, because if you've come and seen our Ferris house, which if you haven't, you need to come and see it. But it's not a very big house. Now, it was the grandest house in McKinney at the time.
Yes.
But to have 12 people in there, if you were to go in, you'd be like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know where they... I don't know where they all slept. I
on
much
the
less
floor,
sat
in the dog run area.
Yeah, I
It was
guess.
on the floor.
Yeah,
In the
yeah.
dog run area.
But what another interesting fact about that trial is that Stephen Ballou was found guilty. He was a character. Oh, he like rode on the wagon with sitting in his coffin that he was to be put in. He had...
When you're like smoking a pipe or like
yeah,
a
he was
cigar or
smoking a
something.
pipe, and then he handed it to the
was like-
sheriff
yeah.
and said, "Here, hold this for me."
I'll be right back.
But he was the first legal hanging here in McKinney.
And it was such a big event that it was held in Finch Park.
Yeah. There were people came from miles around.
You know what's really interesting is that we actually told the story in our mystery dinner last year. So, and we, and there'll be another one coming up this year, so stay tuned. But we did tell the story of Stephen Ballou last year in our murder mystery dinner. And then we're actually going to mention him again next month when we talk about the Johnson house.
Yes.
So
Things are just McKinney, man.
I know. We're just so intertwined.
We are
so
intertwined.
connected. Everything. So, okay, back to the Ferris house. So the other thing about the Ferris house, which is also an incredible piece of history, it was the first house in McKinney to have glass windows.
I did not remember that.
I'm like, you did know it? Yeah.
I did know it, but I didn't remember that. That's right.
It's easy to just forget just a lot of these little tidbits when you're doing a lot of research and everything. So it was the first house in McKinney to have glass windows. And we do show examples of what could have been on your window in the Ferris house, actually underneath the wallpaper, because, it just would have been some type of cloth or maybe even lace to help with the insects.
It's just a very interesting house. It does have electricity in it now. Obviously, it didn't when it was built. But now it does have electricity, but it is one of the houses that does not have air conditioning.
Yeah, it is not climate
And so
controlled.
if you want to go truly back into the 1800s, come on down and go in the Ferris house in the middle of the summer, and
well, in all fairness,
it is hot.
I'm actually glad you brought this up. We can't open up all the windows and the doors.
No.
So, when the Ferris house was built as the dog trot style, that was the reason what they built it was because it would help with the airflow, right? So when you walk into the Ferris house, you're in the hallway that was closed up, that was once a breezeway, and you will see that across the rooms from each other are doors. The doors are exactly across from each other. And then if you go down the hallway or the breezeway, you'll see that there's a door across from where there was a window and vice versa.
Right.
So if they had the windows open and their doors open, it would create a breeze.
I don't believe it.
So it is really hard to believe that.
If you open your windows and your doors in Texas in the middle of the summer, I don't care what kind of breeze it makes, it is hot.
Yeah, it is really hard to believe that despite the architecture or the thought around it, for the purpose that it was built for, it's just so hot down here. Going into the Ferris house also, since John Ferris was a blacksmith, we do have blacksmith tools that are right inside. The school children love to see them, of course. We do have the house set up as period as we can, thanks to wonderful donations from our McKinney residents. We actually have this amazing chair that you all should see. To have a chair like this that even exists is just it's just crazy.
It's great. It's totally made out of horns from like longhorns. So you'll have to come and see that. That's a new acquisition that someone donated to us that has been in Texas for, I think it was built up north, but then they brought it down to Texas. So it's been down here for a long time.
So that's an amazing piece that's in there. And I think one of the favorite places for people when they come to see the Ferris house is the fireplace.
Yes, the kitchen. It is definitely the heart of that home.
That's right.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
So I know that when they brought that house over, they had to kind of move Fireplace back a little bit. And so you can see the original kind of hearth where it was. And it's amazing. And we do Dutch oven cooking demonstrations in the house sometimes for the kids. And it's just, that was how they made their food in this big giant kitchen, and it heated the home in the winter. And it's gorgeous. And to think we almost lost it a couple years ago.
So the Ferris house has been through a lot.
Yes.
Even since it's come over to our side of the property when we moved it. So first off, it's crazy that the house was lived in up until like just a number of years before it was donated to us.
Right, the 1970s.
And when you look at the house, it's just crazy that, it was lived in that long. And then we moved the house over, and I know we lost a chimney. We did lose a fireplace.
Yes. It had several chimneys and several, I think was it 2020?
It was 2020 because we were lucky there were not a lot of people on our property due to the pandemic when an accident happened.
And it was right after the farmer's market when a man lost control and missed the chapel by like this much and came over, mowed down some of the original crepe myrtles, and luckily he ran into the fireplace. Because if he would have been over a few feet, he would have either run straight through the property into the Taylor.
Right.
Or he would have knocked down the Ferris house.
James West has been able to build 2 out of the 3 fireplaces that existed on the house. And we will be having a fundraiser in the future to help build the 3rd one, because we're really about preserving our history, the history of the buildings and the families as well.
Yeah, so we ran into the fireplace, which kind of moved the Ferris house. It jolted it.
Yeah,
Lots of things got...
I think it was like 1.5 inches, which doesn't sound like much, but when you have like this wood frame, right, that's like a square, and you jolt it, it caused a lot of damage.
It did.
And we're still to this day working on repairing some of the damage that vehicle had made. And I do believe the gentleman ended up being okay. He suffered a health incident.
That's what it said.
Yes. So, but we're still to this day working on the damage. And you can still see some of the damage that was done on the Ferris house. So it's had quite a history, but it's still standing.
Yeah, it's still standing. You can't knock it down.
Well,
but yeah, it's a grand house, and I know, Jamie, we have been talking about kind of getting it back to its original grandness. Eventually, when we find time and find funds and find good wallpaper, we do want to re-wallpaper and kind of get it looking, spruce it up.
That's right.
And get it back to where it originally was.
Right. because it was the grandest house in McKinney at its time. But it's not that it's not grand when you walk in now. It's really fascinating to see how the boards run, right? How Mr. Ferris had built. It's not how you would see it now, the home's built now. So I think we'll probably, even when we do get to wallpaper the house, just be really excited, by the way. We'll probably leave like a little area so they can see the wood underneath.
Right,
because like what we do in a lot of our other homes, like the Taylor Inn, we left the newspaper
and there's
exposed.
There's some exposure here in the Delaney house where you can see the original. We can show the kids where the original electric cords were.
And how we matched up the paint colors.
Yes.
So we do try to do stuff like that to where we can really not just show the integrity of the home or how it was built, but just it's fascinating.
Yes, it is.
You need to learn about the architecture, right? And then we'll be working on a new exhibit in that.
We are. We'll kind of tease it a little bit. It's coming. Maybe
coming.
Not soon. It's coming.
It's coming. It's like 2 years still in the thought process, but it's just the point is that there's a lot of exciting things going on here at Chestnut Square. So all the more reason, follow us along on all these social media platforms so you can get the inside tips on what's going on and what's coming up and even how you can be a part of it.
You can come volunteer.
You can come and volunteer. Become a member.
We want to let you know far in advance of things that are coming up. Our ghostly hauntings are starting up, and in October we do have our Ghost Walk / Ghostly Hauntings Halloween edition. So make sure that you check back for that. And then the first weekend in November, we are going to have our murder mystery dinner, which is very fun. It's an interactive kind of experience with McKinney Repertoire Theater. They're going to be doing a murder mystery that is based on something that happened here in McKinney in the 20s. It was a murder, and we're trying to figure out who was the perpetrator of this. It was a movie theater kind of after a movie. Someone got killed.
I do like that our murder mystery dinner this year is actually the weekend after Halloween, because sometimes you're just not ready to hang up, right? Your cape. And there's usually just a lot of events going on, and so you just have that extra weekend for just something spooky, so you can enjoy the other festivities in the area as well. And then, Halloween obviously falls midweek, and then you can come in for your murder mystery dinner before starting that Thanksgiving time, right? Yeah. Just one more hurrah for Halloween or a spooky time, whatever.
Great. Be sure to follow us on our social media, and please subscribe to Historified and share with a friend.
Thank you for joining us today and for following along on our podcast and joining in the discussion. And we love having you. We love teaching about Chestnut's history and McKinney's history as well. And we'd love for you to join us for future podcasts too. So subscribe.
Yeah. Thank you.